95% of patients say, what about food, doctor? Because people make that connection immediately between digestive health and the fuel you put in the tank. And I remember very clearly one particular patient saying, are there any foods I should eat or avoid in order to help? And when they say help, they mean to help me feel better today, tomorrow, next month, next year, to improve my prognosis. And the answer to that young man was given by my boss was, it doesn't matter, eat whatever you like. You know, bring in junk food if you want. We just need to get calories into you. And
let me interrupt you. That's exactly what I was told by my abdominal surgeon after they removed the tumor. I asked the same question: is there any food I need to avoid? Because it just in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't know, I don't want to screw up the surgery and eat the wrong, like, you know, is hot sauce gonna screw up this, melt the stitches? You know what I mean? I didn't know anything about anything, but right. And I was told, no, it doesn't matter what you eat. In fact, he made a joke: don't lift anything heavier than a beer. So
See, for me, that is upsetting, okay? Because we have so much, there are evidence-based answers to that question. And as doctors and scientists and physicians, we have a duty that when our patients ask us that question, when you ask your surgeon that question, that instead of trying to hide their ignorance and make a joke about it, they should either have the answer, or they should have a colleague who can, like a registered dietitian or a gastroenterologist who can come and talk to you, or they should have a resource that they can point you towards. Because as we'll be talking about in a few minutes, the food we eat and the many lifestyle choices we make have a huge impact on our health and longevity. I mean, we live on a planet, Chris, I mean, if we talk about outside of cancer, where unhealthy food choices now surpass famine and pestilence and plague as the #1 cause of healthy years of life lost. So of course food matters. Of course our food choices matter. They've got to matter. The science is overwhelming. But you know, very early on in my career, I realized that was the question all of my patients were going to ask me. So over the next 10, 12 years in training to becoming the attending or the consultant, as we call it in this part of the world, I was determined in 2012, when I finally became the guy whose name is on the chart and who's responsible for that patient's prognosis, I was determined that when they asked me that question, I'd be able to give them evidence-based answers, and I would have registered dietitians, et cetera, who would work with me to help them implement those evidence-based answers.
Was there a light bulb moment for you? Because, you know, what you just described, the scene with the supervisory or elder physician or whatever, saying, no, it doesn't matter what you eat. At that time, I'm sure you were like, oh, I guess not, right? Or were you like, that doesn't make sense? Like, how was that progression of thought for you?
It was slow, man. It was a long process. And I mean, when you're training to be a doctor, you've got 1,000 other things to think about as well. You know, you're juggling a lot, you're working 100 hours a week, etc. But I'm thinking about 2004, and I was particularly interested in inflammatory bowel disease and Crohn's disease. There was a paper published in the British Medical Journal, and it was the subject of an editorial, which is the mark of an important article, okay? Not only was it published in a leading journal, but the editors of the journal wrote an editorial about it. So if you publish a paper and you get an editorial, which has happened to me a couple of times, it's like a nice little pat on the back. Yes, I've published important work. And the title of the editorial for this paper was Inflammatory Bowel Disease, Time to Quit the Meat, ? Okay.
Interesting.
And that was a study showing that for patients with ulcerative colitis, patients who would eat meat were far more likely to have a flare up of their disease, end up needing more medication, end up being in hospital, end up having a colectomy. So that was 2004. And, you know, I read that paper, read all the references, read the scientific articles that it was citing, and, you know, did the nerd thing that I love to do, go get the papers they're referencing. What are these mechanisms? What is it that meat is doing to our digestive health? So very early on, even as a younger doctor, the first answer I had, the first hint I had towards this, when my patients would say, anything I can do, I'd say, well, look, you might want to cut down on your meat consumption, particularly red and processed meat. But as you get further and further into it, you realize that when it comes to digestive health, the more whole food, unprocessed food, the more plant predominant your dietary pattern, the better you're going to do. The logical conclusion being whole food, plant-based. But the real light bulb moment came for me, Chris, was in about 2012, 2013, 2014, as I was now the attending, I was seeing my own patients, as I started implementing this with my patients, and I saw them coming back with tremendous improvements, tremendous benefits alongside their standard medical treatment.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you just saw, why not subscribe? Here's a link to do that. And if you'd like to watch the full interview, you can find it at chrisbeatcancer.com. There's a link to it in the description right below this video.